live in a world ruled by tyranny, where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth, a network of courage, a network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, ORRA the Informationalist.
Please just tell me what's happening to me in plain English without the mumbo jumbo.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like Aura, the informationalist.
How you doing?
All right, peace and greetings, people. This is Aura the Informationalist, and you're now tuned in to the Network of Awareness podcast radio show. Peace and greetings to all the Network of Awareness, to all the peoples around the world, and we're continuing to grow each and every day. And today we have another Truth Seeker episode. And I'm going to bring on my very special guest in just a moment. And before I do that, I just want to let you know a little bit about the guest that we're bringing on today's show. Now, in this Truth Seeker series, we're going to be bringing on a guest that has a ton of experience. And it's none other than Dr. Grant Rex Kruhly. He's the founder of Depth Healing Technology. He's been studying and training in his multidiscipline crafts of health, quantum science, personal development, and that personal development is in the areas of awakening, business success, and goal achievement, psychology, stress, athletic performance, and martial prowess, consciousness and brain research, classical Japanese swords, Zen, Aikido, Oneness, Deeksha, energy, psychologies, brain reprogramming, military science, quantum biology, ecosystems, and spiritual mystical experiences for over 51 years. So we know that we're going to have a great conversation with Dr. Grant, or Dr. G, as he likes to be called. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Dr. G because we have a lot to discuss. And I truly appreciate those that are going to download the show, because this is definitely one that you do not want to miss. So, without further ado, let me bring on Dr. G here in just a moment. All right. So, let's welcome to the show Dr. G. Welcome to the show, Dr. G.
Thank you so much, Aura. I'm really honored.
You're very welcome. And thank you for coming on to the show. And really do appreciate you being here. And I'm very excited because, you know, me personally, I've had a ton of supernatural, mystical, spiritual experiences throughout my life. I sometimes I call them life and death moments, because there were moments where I almost died and something just miraculously happened. There are other moments where my life wasn't in danger and I was able to experience them. But before we get into that, you have a pretty extensive resume as far as things that you've been, things that you studied, learned, and practice.
Mhm.
So let's kind of start from the beginning. What got you into this field of studying metaphysical information, spiritual, um, uh, just the whole industry that you're in? Because there's so many things that you learn, but what really provoked or inspired you to want to go into the direction and the career choice that you led into and that you've now been studying for over 53 years?
Yeah. I'm one of these days, I'm going to have to make myself an actual studio. I hope the lighting's okay because I realized the curtain behind me is silhouetting me. So I apologize
No,
for
that's
that.
fine. Your
So the
lighting's
way
just fine.
the way this all starts, folks, I was born for this. So by the age of 3, I was already. I used to draw. My dad used to buy me these huge, big Bristol board things I could draw on, and I was already drawing would been sort of like a Noah's Ark, except it was like a flying saucer. Now this is a kid 3 years old, and the objective was, because I can remember it like it was yesterday, I wanted to be able to take all of the animals, the plants, and all the people, everything that was alive, to another planet where there was no war. No war. That's an unusual thing for a kid 3 years old. And then,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that carried on all the way to the age of 6 when they entered me into grade 1. And when I entered into the school, I failed grade 1, and they considered me like a retarded and all that kind of stuff. Humiliated my father because publicly back in Canada back then, they used to take the kids' grades and they put them in the newspaper, the public newspaper. I was my father's first son, eldest son, only son. And no, my little brother had been born by then. So he was humiliated in front of all of his friends, and being a Polish man from Polish immigrants and very proud, he did not have the emotional wherewithal to know how to handle that. So their reaction was they rejected me emotionally for the rest of my life. And what happened was, at that time, I sort of walled off, and I was trying to figure out how to be seen and how to be important, because I wasn't seen or important to anybody. And when I would watch the movies, because my older sister always watched movies, and I saw John Wayne and all of the great heroes, and it occurred to me that all of them were fighters, and because they were fighters, they were respected. So I became a fighter, and by grade 8, I was the toughest and the best fighter in the school. And from that time on, nobody or nothing ever defeated me. So I went on to become a martial artist, and I studied. I became in the Western Hemisphere. I'd be in the top 1% of certainly Aikido people in the world. And then I put in like 50,000 hours on the mats in Aikido alone. And I'm not a commercial martial artist or a sports martial artist. That's why I went on to teach the United States militaries, all branches. I'm the real deal. So what that means is, from right at the very beginning, I never saw or read or had any like a newspaper or any of the normal media, and I had nothing to do with. Nothing was brainwashing me at all. I was either training. By the age of 13, I was training. By the age of 16, I had teachers. And then by the age of 18, I was an apprentice under a great master. So from 18 on, the only thing I ever did was apprentice under great masters. As a doctor, same thing. I have my academic degrees and all of that. I don't care about them at all. They're strictly pieces of paper and mostly worthless. Why are they worthless? Because the information you learn in the academic arena is all antiquated. It's wrong. It's all garbage. And
Facts.
it's manipulated by the pharmaceutical company. So I apprentice under master doctors, and eventually, like the martial career, I broke my back in half when I was 27, weight training accident. I was able to heal that with meditation in 12 months. And I had many series of really bad injuries. So that introduced me to great master healers, like Dr. George Goodhart Jr., who was the founder of applied kinesiology. So what happened was, while I was studying martially under great masters, I was being introduced to phenomenal doctors that are absolutely beyond belief. And I was being inspired and learning. And then eventually when my dojo, I built a big dojo in California. And when that was closed, that's where I taught the military and NASA. I had some scientists from NASA there. When that closed in the year 2000, I decided to become a doctor. So I entered that arena in my 40s. And then when I graduated, I moved to Georgia. I graduated in Texas. I moved to Georgia, and there I met Larry Habersky. Now, Larry is a great, great, great master doctor of the quantum field. He's the one I studied under him for 8 years. And that's where I learned the fundamental basis of all the work I do now. And then in 2013, when I was introduced directly to Deeksha and Shriyama Bhagavan, the avatars in India, then that expedited my understanding, and I brought in mysticism powerfully. That's what guides me, because I have I'm considered a bhakta. Bhakta means I have a very strong bond with the divine. So the divine channel nowadays, the divine channels right through me, and it's what taught me how to do depth healing, because I'm a distance healer. So I help people all over the world, and I engineer their lives and their health from where I'm sitting here. It doesn't matter if you're on Pluto. It doesn't make any difference to me at all. So I use the quantum field with quantum science combined with mysticism. I have empowerment to do that through Tibet and through India. So but I was born for this purpose, and I'm very glad that I had to go through a hell of a lot of living to get here, and now I'm doing my work very intensely.
Absolutely. And let's talk about this work. There's something here that really caught my eye when I came across your profile, and it says deaf healing processes. It says your deaf healing processes uses cutting edge quantum physics to help individuals remove cognitive dissonance from their subconscious minds.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that, because it's something that I've talked about. I'm going into my 6th season of this podcast. So we're just a little over 600 episodes now. And
Wow.
since day 1, I've talked a lot about cognitive dissonance. Reason being is because I think, and this is just my opinion, I can't prove this to be a fact, but because I'm only 45 years old, I've been here for 45 years. And when this whole COVID, or let me not even say COVID, because YouTube might flag me for even saying it. This Kaka-19, I call it, really shifted, really changed a paradigm into cognitive dissonance. We went into a
Yep.
cognitive dissonance paradigm where if you would tell people like, hey, that mask is not helping you do anything, or this doesn't exist, this is not real, this is just to scare you. Don't take that okie dokie pokey into your arm because you're going to regret it. People were looking at
Mm,
you like, no, you're wrong. Dr. Faulty over here told me that my life is in danger and that I could be susceptible and that I need to go get tested and so on and so forth. This is when I
mm.
started my podcast, 2020, June 9th, first episode. Now, I think that I probably didn't choose the best time to podcast because we this is when we came into major censorship, which you obviously know all about that.
I bet.
So let's talk about this helping individuals remove cognitive dissonance because I feel like 2/3 of the world's population suffer from this cognitive dissonance, where especially when it comes to dogma and it comes to people's spiritual beliefs, a lot of people are locked into a set way of thinking, but the world and all the things that have been happening since 2020 have kind of showed us that there is more than meets the eye, that and lies are being revealed every day on the
Mm.
internet for the past 20 years. I mean, people are starting to realize that Benjamin Franklin didn't discover electricity by flying his kite with a key. But there's still people, even in my own family, that believe that he did.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a topic that's very sensitive for me because I feel like I can't really deal with people that have a lot of cognitive dissonance because then they put my life in danger because they're limited beliefs. And I can't associate with people like that. I mostly associate with people that have evolving belief systems because for me, especially when it comes to the supernatural, I'm starting to realize that everything that I've been taught has been a lie. And I'm starting to realize that when it comes to this thing called life and spirituality, that there's a multitude of dimensions, there's a multitude of galaxies within
Mm.
this universe that we can only begin to understand who and what the divine most high, some people call it God, which I don't like to do that no more, but I like to
Mm.
call it the most high, the creator of all that is and ever will be. People are starting to realize that that is not a man, that is not a human being, that is a force of energy that we can only begin to start understanding. You're not going to really completely have an understanding, but because of dogma, because of all these other things that have been put in place with academia, like you were talking about, even with the pharmaceutical companies that are still influencing our lives heavily today,
Mm.
how do you go about helping individuals remove that cognitive dissonance because it's so strong?
I disintegrate it like as if it's a fly. That's why depth healing is peerless, and it's real. It's actually, on one hand, it looks real simple. On the other hand, it took me decades to acquire the abilities to do that and to do it at a distance. So, first of all, so do you want me to focus on cognitive dissonance as it is with the Third World War and the jab and all that stuff, or do you want me to focus on fundamental cognitive dissonance and what it is?
Why don't we do this? I'm glad how you worded that. Start with the second, speaking about cognitive dissonance and what it is and how it relates to what we've experienced for the past 3 years.
Yeah, and what's coming up.
And
Okay.
what's coming up. I'm sorry that I forgot to mention that because there's a lot coming right now.
Oh yes, very strongly. So, folks, cognitive dissonance. You'll be hard pressed to find any human being anywhere on the earth that doesn't have cognitive dissonance in one way or another. And here's why. It's the way we're designed. Okay, we're designed in a particular way so that we can survive. So let's take two kids. One is being born on the Amazon Delta in a village, and the other kid's being born in Manhattan, New York. Okay. Now, from the time of conception is a big deal. I can talk about that on a real deep way if we want to go there. But think from conception through the womb, birth, the first 6 hours, that's program number 3. Then from the end of the first 6 hours to the end of the first 6 years is program number 4. There's 10 programs. And then program number 5 is the beginning of the frontal cortex, age 7, until whatever age you are now. Now, from conception until the end of age 6, when the frontal cortex begins, that is all you are is a vacuum cleaner. Your subconscious mind is absorbing at a rate of 40 million bits of information per second, 24/7. It's taking in everything literally. So that includes at 40 million bits of information per second. That's not just what mom thinks or feels. It's everything. And then when you come out, the birth is a huge situation, and that has to do with not only the room and everything that is said, everything that's said or experienced in those first 6 hours is massively critical to the programs that's going to control all your life. And then for those first 6 years, okay? Then eventually at the age of 7, the frontal cortex, which is very weak, only processes a maximum of 40 bits of information per second. I call it the educated brain. We start to go through the socialization process and all the programming in the schools and all that stuff. Here's the trick. Everything, when this activates, every single thing, encountered, thought, experience, whatever, perceived, is fed through the subconscious database. By the age of 7, you have approximately, if you do the math, 10 quadrillion bits of information. So the kid born on the Amazon Delta, he's born in a jungle, and he needs a particular amount of software to be able to negotiate his life there. It's very different from the kid in Manhattan. There's no connection. So what happens is we, 20 years later, we bring the kid from the Amazon, we bring the kid from the Manhattan, and we take him to a big farm. And the farmer just laid down a whole bunch of cow manure, and there's been a lot of rain, and it's a great big cow field full of manure and mud, and it's wet. You put the one kid from the Amazon in there who understands nature, and you put the other guy from Manhattan who's become a big businessman and wears $600 shoes. You put them in that field, and their perceptions are 180 degrees different. That 180 degrees different perception is not coming from their frontal cortex at all. It's coming from their subconscious. And the subconscious tells this. The one guy from New York thinks E. coli, disease, lots of flies, place stinks. And the other kid from the Amazon understands fertility, and he loves plants, and he understands that the crop is going to come up. So the guy from New York gets real sick, and he's upset, and everything is disgusting. His immune system goes down, and he's susceptible to disease. The farmer and the guy from the Amazon, they never get sick at all. And it's the only reason is the perception is controlling their biology, and so their health is dictated from that. Now, what happens with cognitive dissonance? The frontal cortex goes forward in time. The subconscious mind goes backward in time. Subconscious mind runs 95% of all your life, all of it. This is only active a maximum of 5% of the day, maximum. Nowadays, with the pandemic stuff, most of them are operating 0 to 1%, and everything's just subconscious. So so you'll see. Let's take a bunch of entrepreneurs, and they've gone to Tony Robbins, and they're in his beautiful big outfit, you know, and his methodology. It's very good, but it's a lot of rah. So they get all fired up, and they've got their why, and it's very, very good stuff. And Mr. A takes off from that thing, and he's got his plan and everything, and it works. He makes progress. And Mr. B Mr. B's been to 3 of them, and he can't make a dime. He starts off like a soldier, can't make a dime. What's happening? Mr. A does not have a cognitive dissonance program in the subconscious that goes against the business plan. There's nothing there in his subconscious that says, no, you can't do that. Mr. B has programs when he was 4 years old, and he overheard dad and mom talking, and it's all about being a loser. Everyone in the family, nobody is ever going to succeed, ever. No one has ever succeeded. So that's in this Mr. B's subconscious. So no matter how hard he tries, he never succeeds until or unless he can remove that cognitive dissonance. And here's the fundamental math to that. Just remember the ratio 1 to 1 million. This is 1 to 1 million, 40 to 40 million. And that's why you can't. So what I do all I do with depth healing is I go straight into the subconscious with surgical precision relative to the question asked. And I find the exact download where they downloaded that imprint, and I disintegrate it. How do I do that? I use frequencies, 2 kinds, destructive interference waves and constructive interference waves. The destructive interference waves I'm empowered through India, Tibet, through Padmasambhava. The constructive interference waves I transfer empowered through India by the great Param Jyoti itself, the great compassionate light. That's how I do it. How do we know that that's not all a bunch of fluff and nonsense? Because I have 98, 99% complete success, irregardless of what it is. I don't care what it is, because I'm operating in the field that creates phenomena. I don't need to deal with the phenomena. I just need to deal with what creates the phenomena. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense. Now, before we go into this discussion further, you said 98%. So there's a 2% that doesn't work, right?
Yep.
Is that because of the individual is not trusting you, or is it something else?
It's a very, very good question. When you want to change anything, like let's say you're not feeling so well, and somebody gives you some nutrition to boost you up, something like that. You have to have frequency, duration, and intensity of the stimulus to make a physiologic or energetic change or a consciousness change. Frequency, duration, and intensity of the stimulus. So in the 2% where I haven't been able to get them, one is if I had one lady in particular, I tried for one entire year. She was an older lady, and her life had collapsed. All of her finances collapsed, her marriage collapsed, everything had collapsed. And she used to be very prosperous, but it all ran out. And I never could break her victim consciousness. She's the only human being I've ever encountered in 12 years. In her case, the storylines were so complex and so like if you hit her from the left, it would turn to the right. You turn to the right. No matter what I did, I was never able to disassemble the the storyline complex of that, of the way mind is a field. I can explain that if you like me to do that. Mind is a field. It's not people do not have a mind. You access mind. That's why the brain is an antenna array.
Right.
But anyway, I never was able to break that for her. And to this day, as far as I know, her life is completely crushed. And then you get people like, say, if I have a cancer client, when you have something like a cancer, you got to hit frequency, duration, and intensity very strongly, because cancer is a big message. You have to find the message. Why is it there? Then you have to remove the why, and then you have to rebuild up the body and all of the physiology. And that takes time, because usually with a cancer, the reason is big. It's not small. And the field, when you're looking at the subconscious, you have to think like you're standing on the shore of the Pacific Ocean. And then our subconscious is continuous with the collective unconscious. That's how they use the pandemic. Right? We can get into that because that's all morphic field work. So it's huge. And when you have a problem or a belief, a negative belief, it gets interwoven with emotion and stories and smells and scents and sights and colors, and all those things make the complex. And what I do is I have to find that complex, and I have to destroy the pillars that are holding it up. It may take time. And so many times with the cancer patients, they give up. When I fixed my back was broke right in half when I was 27. And all I did was use Jose Silva's mind control, his type of meditation, and I programmed it. But how did I program it? See, I was living at home, so I had food and shelter, and everything was taken care of. So I meditated 4 hours a day. I imprinted the subconscious. If you imprint the subconscious has one big task: to make you, your behavior, and everything in your life match its programming. If there is any kind of a problem, anything that's different, it'll change it to make it the same. So when I put the program into my subconscious that my back was not broken, not only that, I was back up to full gymnastic capability. I got a mosquito here. My broken body didn't match that picture, so it just fixed it. And then my back was all sealed up, and that was verified by CAT scans under Dr. Sidney Goldman at Providence Hospital in Michigan. So I did the same thing as Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza, if you're familiar with him, his is different. He was run over by a truck, and he actually had bone chips from the spine were embedded in the cord. He also fixed that with 12 months of meditation, and his way is also mystic. His teacher is Ramtha. My teacher is the Paramjyoti Shrama Bhagavan in India. His is Ramtha. Their outfit is in California. That's how Dispenza did that. There's like 250 different kinds of chiropractor. I'm a network doctor, so I work with the higher cortical areas of the brain, which remaps and self-heals. Joe is a Gonstead chiropractor. They're like, that method is like structural engineers. So they're very precise. Gonstead was one of the greatest chiropractors that ever lived, and he was a structural perfectionist. So Joe did everything in a very technical way. All I did was just make the general picture that I'm in top shape, and then the intelligence of the body and the divine take care of it for you. But you see, I had the time to do 4 hours a day. I had a shelter, food. Mom was taking care. You understand that? So with the cancer patients, when I did get my 2%, they don't see me often enough, or they can't afford it, or they can't make the time, or they get discouraged too easily. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I'm actually putting this episode on my new season that I'm starting. It's called The Light is Within You and All Around You. That's the theme of season 6. The light is within
Oh,
you
wow.
and all around you. And this is what you're talking about. And it's very interesting because I've been studying a lot of books that are not talked about in scriptures. And one of the ones that I'm coming across is the Gospel of the Holy 12, where it talks about the man that they call Jesus Christ, whose true name, his Hebrew name is Yeshua. He, from the ages of 12 to 32 years old, all he did was study in the Egyptian mystery schools. He studied in Tibet and other places around the world, study Reiki. And this is how he was able to do a lot of these phenomenal things, because he was deeply rooted with the divine, with that higher power. And it's just very interesting how a lot of that is not brought out. You gotta do some deep research to find these things out about this man called Jesus Christ, whose true name was Yeshua. And he did these things based on these studies, based on the practices from the ages of 12 to 32 years old. That's why he reappears at 33 on the donkey in Egypt, right? So I find it interesting because as I'm studying more of these things, I'm starting to realize that the world is a lot older than what scientists and archaeologists claim it is. What I've also found out is that there's a lot of different entities that have been here. And one thing that I always knew as a child, and that I know it to this day, because I can't necessarily prove it, but based on these mystical experiences that I've had, I don't even feel like I'm from this planet. I feel like I'm from another place. And I've been revealed that in my dreams. I've been revealed that in my conscious state while I've been awake. I've been told that I'm a star child, that I'm a messenger, all these different things. And they're all starting to come together in my older years now. Everything that I was told when I was younger and things that I experienced that didn't make sense to me, or that I couldn't make, heads or tails of, now in my 40s, it's starting to come together slowly but surely. It's starting to just make sense more than it ever has before. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because your work is a lot about what I talk about on my show. Your work is centered around awareness, right?
Yeah,
Right. So
absolutely.
I'm glad. And by the way, I would like for you to come back, because
Sure.
I have to have multiple conversations about this with you. This can't be discussed in one sitting. But with that being said, let's stick to the topic at hand when it comes to this cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
Everything is based on vibrations and frequencies. Everything, right? Even our bodies, physical bodies, are not really matter. It turns into matter through our perception, but it's really just fields of energy, of light waves, right?
That's right.
So when it comes to this cognitive dissonance, which you gave a great explanation about it, I think probably the best that I've heard. Now, moving forward, like what we were going to talk about the pandemic and all these other things. Let's talk about that, because one of the things that I had brought out that first got me censored was I shared a documentary called Cracking the Eggshell. Cracking the Eggshells to Conditioning. And this thing is hard to come by now, but I showed it. I talked about it. I played excerpts of it. And one of the things that they brought out was the method in which this pandemic was brought out is old. And one of the first things that they do is that they push it in the media for the first 3 days. They push that fear 24 hours a day, which they did that with this pandemic. First, it started in China. Then they said, oh, something's happened. This thing that happened in China now came to the U.S. Now it's in Europe and all these other places. So
Mhm.
when I brought this out, I was censored a lot because I talked about how the conditioning of the mind, right? They put information out there and then they make it seem real by just telling you that it is. It's just like if I was to meet you right now and I tell you, hey, I'm a doctor too. How would you know I'm not a doctor? You're going to
That's
believe me based on what I tell you.
that's right. That's
And
right.
what happened? The people that have that heavy cognitive dissonance, because like you said, we all have some form of it, but there's some that have more of it. And those people that had more of it were the ones that were like, stay 6 feet away from me. I remember I saw this video with
Wear
this.
a mask, they got
Yeah.
you got the shield and
My favorite one was where they was at this outdoor park, like one of those Yellowstone parks, and there was a girl that was filmed on YouTube that had an actual measuring tape and was throwing it out and got upset because these two Mexican women were within that measuring tape outside by the creek, and she got into a fit. But that's there was millions of those types of incidences, but that
yeah.
cognitive dissonance, we saw it, and I'm going to use that word, we saw it on steroids in 2020. So
Well,
can
you're
you
going to see
talk
it a lot
about that?
more.
Oh yeah, we are. And I live in Florida.
Oh,
I know you're overseas.
I
And
like
here,
Florida.
let me tell you something, Dr. G.
Florida's pretty.
I'm originally from New York. I moved to Florida 7 years ago.
Ah,
When this whole thing happened, I was already practicing social distancing.
yeah.
Social distancing is kind of like common practice for me. So when this actually went down, I was happy. I knew that it was a sham, but I was happy it was happening because I was like, finally, the Western civilization culture is finally going to be exposed for what it really is. And it's a bunch of shenanigans. And it got exposed, but at the same time, their plan of deception was executed very well. I got to give it to them because
Boy,
most of the world
they're
was
winning.
tricked.
They're still winning right now.
Right.
That's the objective is kill us all. So you want me to? I can explain how they execute the pandemic really really well if you'd like me to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the way this works. When I'm almost 70 years old, I'm like 65 now, I'll be 66 shortly. When I was only in grade 6, I can remember very clearly being in science class in Ivor Chandler School in Windsor, Ontario. And they were already showing us what a pandemic does, how everybody has to be sequestered and quarantined, and they have to be vaccinated. Now, this is when I was a little tiny boy at the age of in grade 6. Okay. Now, please understand, it goes way, way, way earlier. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution or before that. And the society is always, remember now, your subconscious is programmed to the age, pure program to the age of 7. That's why the Jesuits said, if you give me, this was 600 years ago, Jesuits said, if you give me the boy to the age of 7, I'll give you the man, period, because they're just programmed robots. So what happens is you go all those generations back, and they're the big shots that know that were the very, very smart, like those kind of, this Illuminati and all those boys, they understand the mind very, very well, way back then. So what they do very carefully and specifically, get everybody, always remember, if you get sick, you need the doctor. The doctor is the authority. And then if they do this, and they build, okay? So what happens is you teach the children, and they become parents, and they teach the children, they become parents, they teach the children, and the school system and all of the teachers are programmed, and everything is programmed very carefully. This is all by design, folks. So then it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And all of the compliance programs, the fears, the idea that a pandemic, remember bird flu? I used to laugh. I can't wait for them to have gerbil flu or maybe cricket flu or whatever the hell.
Cricket flu. That would be, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a cricket flu.
Yeah. So anyway, and they got monkeys and mad kind of got all this bull, rubbish, garbage. Well, anyway, they're just programmed. And remember, the subconscious runs 95% of everything. Everything you say, think, and do is programmed. And then when they've done the cognitive studies now, we know that something like 95% of the thoughts you will think today are redundant because they're just playing in the loop. And then something like 70 to 80% at least of all of those are negative or fear-based, and then when you're scared or when you're shocked, it lights up a little organ in your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is like a little sentry looking for trouble or danger. And every time it sees or thinks something is dangerous, it releases cortisol. Cortisol is addictive. It's more addictive than crack cocaine. So what they've done now is you have the entire global world with all the programs for pandemics, for massive disease, for vaccines, all of the pre-stuff is set. Then if you look at you can actually look at the pandemic thing has all been planned out for over 20 years, 30 years. They've got it all. You can just go on Google and they don't even hide it. So they've got everything designed, and then all they did was initiate it. The moment they initiated in China, all the programs, they just turn on. So even though a guy might have 2 or 3 PhDs, in his subconscious, he's got all this programming that the pandemic is very dangerous and you've got to get vaccines. And so the guy with the 3 PhDs is in line to get his shots. And then a couple of days later, he's dead, or a couple of months later, or up to 4 years later. But he will die, folks. Or the nanotechnology that they insert, it goes through the blood-brain barrier. Then using the 5G technology, they can change your thinking, your moods, your emotions. They can control you. When you look at a 5G tower, folks, that's all weaponized. Do you actually ever believe when you look at those gigantic things, you think that's all that big hardware is necessary? Why isn't your phone some kind of a gigantic thing if all that's necessary? No, that's all weaponized. So what they did was, do you know, for instance, if you've ever been in charge of organizing something like a wedding and all the things you got to do, and there's so much planning. So just imagine, let's just say, just take New York. How much planning is necessary to blanket an entire city of New York in 5G towers very quickly and have all of the medical personnel bought off and all of the media bought off and all the massive, you know how much organization it takes to do that globally? And then it's all this fast. And then when they initiate China, they shut the whole world down in just really a matter of days. And that is just brainwashing, programming, subconscious mind. When you watch television, when you're listening to that garbage they call music nowadays, that's all filled with flicker rates. Those flicker rates allow them to access your subconscious, And if you ever think there isn't subliminal information there, you're wrong.
Yeah.
The whole thing, folks, is enormously sophisticated. Now they've got, if you want to see some, Google cognitive warfare. How do you think they're engineering now so that all the little children can decide whether they want to be transvestites or boys or girls or that transhuman? Now, right in the United States, what do they call whatever they call the government?
Or they call them gender fluid. That means they could wake up one day feeling like a man and the next day the woman.
And they wrote right in the law, if you are found to be transhuman, which means you've got nanotechnology, so you're no longer a human,
You're the property of the
forfeit
government.
all human rights.
That's right. And what's interesting about that is that it's written into law that you are now the property of the government that initiated that inoculation.
I'd love them to come and visit me. But anyway, so you have to, we say in the martial world, you have to understand the arena. If you don't understand the arena, you're dead and gone. So let's say you got a real great champion sports martial artist. Sports martial artists are not designed for let's say, a prison environment. It will not work, and you'll be dead and gone, beat to pulp. You cannot. I'm very good on the street, but I am not. I am not. Even though I've studied tactical firearms and urban warfare, I am not at a level to walk into a urban warfare environment and just survive. That's a lie. You have to understand the arena. The arena you have now, shows like this with ORRA, we are trying to educate and build, because it's almost like the resistance movement in a Nazi occupied country, because that's where it's going, folks.
Oh, I think we're already here, but yeah, it's getting worse.
It's going to get a lot worse because of all the people. Now, on my website, for instance, I have a product that was designed by the lady who worked for the United States military who originally designed the nanotechnology to kill you, and then she rebelled. And there's a product called Clean Slate. It's just an adaptogen. But what you do, you just take those drops under your tongue, and that will reverse engineer the nanotechnology and save your life. You won't get the blood clots. Yeah, there's some, but they keep it. They don't say that on their website because then they'd be torn down by the FDA and those people.
But one thing I learned, Dr. G, from people that I associate with, is they told me that there's a lot of different ways to take a lot of that nanotechnology out of your system holistically with herbs and other things. And I know people that are doing it. But those same people told me, they said, Aura, you know what I can't do? I cannot by any means reverse the DNA that's now been switched to RNA. That's permanent. That's what they tell me. They say that that's permanent. That they have no, they don't have no way.
I'll have to look into that. I can neutralize nanotechnology, and I can obliterate graphene oxide, and I can disintegrate the blood clots. I do that for people all the time. I hadn't thought of that. I'll have to take a look at that. That's true. Because see, what he's bringing up is you got to understand that they cause you to mutate. Things are mutating. There's so much, folks. You really got to be aware. That's why I love the title here, awareness. You cannot. That's why ambushes work. Why does an ambush work? Because the people who get ambushed, they don't know that the ambush is waiting for them. They're not aware of it. And then it's too much, too fast, too close. and they're dead and gone. You got to be aware, and that's why I love being part of these things, because it's so important. Otherwise, you don't have a chance. They're way too organized and sophisticated. All the stuff I know about the mind, they know all that. They're just using it in the reverse order to harm you or to control you. Look at Agenda 21. You ever seen those movies, The Hunger Games? Well, guess
Yeah,
what?
I talk about it all the time. So
Yeah.
my listeners are on the same page with you, because one of the things that I've talked about, and you're seeing it here in the United States, where a lot of this infrastructure designs that they're putting into place and funding is to create the districts, because these districts already been placed over 30 years ago. They want to create, and I'm starting to see it here in Florida in certain places where they're creating these types of, they look like they're highways that are going high up above the ground, but they're not actually going to be that. These are going to be that major railway that they want to use, that bullet train, to transport people from one district to the next, just like Hunger Games, and have people sectioned off. Now, I'm glad you brought this up, because back in January, February, March, when they were having these train derailments, which they're still having to this day, and then they had the Canadian fires, there's all this toxic chemical air that's polluting the atmosphere. And they're doing it so much that people are having to leave these certain areas, which now they're pushing them into these smart cities. And that's going to be your new zones eventually. And by 2030, they want to really have this set in place so that by the year 2040 to 50, it's the Hunger Games.
I'll tell you something, folks, because I'm a fighter.
Right.
And I don't know if we can say this or not, but I hope I hope that the people who do have some brains and some guts rise up and full armed rebellion. And all those people, they need to be obliterated. If you don't obliterate them, you're literally gonna be living a Nazi concentration camp life. And I'll tell you something, nothing of this earth could ever imprison me. Never. That's something, as far as I'm concerned, if you're not willing to fight for your own life and freedom, and then you're done. You got to understand, this is war. This is the real deal. And they don't need planes and bombs and guns. They're just controlling the mind. You realize that people line up to be killed by themselves.
That's right.
They're just complying. And if you have some guts, make up your mind. Don't be corralled like mice. To hell with those people.
Right. And I think that what they're starting to realize too is that they don't have to be violent like they used to be with war. Even though there's still wars going on and people are being shot and killed and having certain weapons utilized on them, as well as the bio weapons now that are, killing people. But the main warfare is the psychological, which ties into the spiritual, because this is, at the end of the day, and I talk about it a lot, is this is all spiritual warfare. This is to control the spirit, to basically destroy the spirit and turn humans into automatons and kind of clone people to become biological robots that are programmed to do exactly what I call the powers that shouldn't be, what they want them to do. And essentially, there's a lot of people going in that direction already. And we saw that with the pandemic, where it's like a lot of people immediately ran with whatever they were told, no matter how bogus it was. And in my opinion, I thought a lot of this stuff was bogus. But what it showed me was something that I was talking about for years, for 25 years. And a lot of my family thought I was crazy, friends, people, but I wasn't looking any that much crazy anymore when the pandemic
It's
hit, because
funny
it was
how
like,
that comes around, eh?
yeah, because it's like, I'm telling people, like, for years, I'm like, this country is not as advanced as you think it is. And the people here are not as aware and as intelligent as they're claimed to be.
Yeah, no.
People
You're
here are
correct.
more dumbed down than they are in other places around the world.
You were
And
correct.
the pandemic proved that to be true. But you know what's the big problem with that? Why people, even though that all was revealed, pride. And what I noticed here in America, a lot of pride. People don't want to admit they're wrong. So much so that I know people within my own family that took that science appliance in their arm and then did it, are having medical issues, having issues with their body, with their mind, but their pride, they hold it in. They're not saying nothing to nobody. Oh, how you been feeling? You know, so and so just passed away. Oh, I'm good. They didn't do nothing to me. And it's like, no, that's not true. It has, but your pride won't allow you to admit that you did something stupid and wrong and admit to it. Some have, but most haven't.
I
And that's that
remember,
cognitive dissonance, by the way.
remember I told you everything is morphic fields?
Yes.
Everything is a morphic field. What's a morphic field? Easiest example for you is the Google Cloud. What is the cloud? It's an electromagnetic field that holds photons of light together, and the information is encoded in the photons of light. Okay. Now, the entire universe on all scales, is nothing but morphic fields. Morphic fields influence and can control perception and behavior. So, for instance, a simple example of that is, let's take one of the old Western movies, and you got a nice little town. Everybody knows everybody else, and everything's fine. And then there's a murder, and everybody gets really upset. And then someone said, well, they start to get into a fever, and somebody wants to hang them. And very quickly, that whole collective of people who normally were all friends and sit on the porch and have coffee together, they are all this angry mob. Okay, mob consciousness. A mob consciousness is a morphic field. And all of a sudden, little orphan Annie, who's just a nice lady that makes pies, is yelling and bloodthirsty to kill this guy, because the field takes them over. You can see it at football games. You can see it on Black Friday, where a guy gets trampled to death because they want to buy a McDonald's hamburger or whatever. And the morphic field control. What they've done with the pandemic is made a morphic field with the preset programming that is empowered with the energy of fear. Fear is a very low frequency, but it's the easiest. It is the easiest. And it spreads very, very easily. And then they use cognitive priming to keep it alive. That's why they have the masks. The masks are always a symbol that there's a danger or something. The masks, by the way, folks, are laced in graphene oxide. Graphene oxide is designed to transmit electricity. It's resonant with 26.5 gigahertz off of 5G. If it's in your bloodstream and they happen to turn on that frequency, you drop dead. So don't wear the mask. The mask is completely worthless. One of the greatest things about the pandemic that I love the most, see, I live in Asia, and here in Asia, there isn't enough consciousness to fill a dead fish. So all you see is millions of everybody, total compliance. total compliance. But whenever they eat, you can take the mask off, because you see, COVID is a very polite disease. It'll never attack you while you're eating. It'll only bother you later. Right? It just takes this much intelligence. But where is it? See, that's how strong the programming is.
Right. Well said, sir. Well said. Because, I think something one of my closest friends, Lincoln, says, he'll say, or common sense ain't common anymore.
Yeah, no.
It really isn't. It really isn't. Because based on what you said was something that you would think common sense would tell you, wait a second, I have to put this on, but while I'm eating, I could take it off. And as soon as I'm done eating, I could put it back on again. Crazy, insane. But yet people are still doing it to this day.
I see people with here in Thailand, they got, some of them have like 2-3 masks on.
Oh yeah, here in the United States too. And another thing too, I've seen people that get very creative. They'll cut a hole in the mask and eat with the mask on in through the hole. I've seen all types of stuff. I've seen all types of stuff. I mean, what and I actually like talking about this because it's stuff that I was talking about 25 years prior to it happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't look like the crazy guy no more, and I'm kind of loving that. I'm loving the fact that you can't call me a conspiracy theorist, because I have a whole series called "Conspiracy is Not a Theory." It's just a fact.
Not a theory, folks.
It's just something that goes on. So one of the things that reminded me that I was going into a different dimension, a paradigm shift of ignorance and of just lack of common sense, was when I was driving back in March. I was one of the only people on the road here in the Tampa Bay area, literally one of the only people in the whole entire 5 counties that was actually driving their car. And I saw a electronic billboard sign that said, please make sure to stay 6 feet in distance from your car, from the next car. Meaning that when you were stopped at the light, to make sure you're at a great distance from the next car, because you can contract CACA-19. I don't even call it. And when I saw that sign, I was just like, I took a picture of it and I said, people, this is what we're dealing with. I'm like, you'd mean to tell me that I may contract some illness because I might be too close to the next car? And that's where you got to be like, what's going on here?
Let me tell you something, okay? As far as the COVID goes, I healed COVID this fast, okay? It's nothing. Yeah, if you took a bucket of that freaking stuff and poured it on my head, all I do is have a cigar and a glass of wine.
Right.
You have to understand the strength of your body tempo is enormously powerful, and your immune system is enormously powerful. Why is it I'm never sick? Right. I'm never sick, folks. Why? Now, Dr. Bruce Lipton is one of the world's most famous microbiologists. He has shown scientifically, if the consciousness reaches a particular level, you are no longer affected by environmental toxins. There's a curve, a graph that you can see. Now, if you understand how, remember I told you about the guys standing in the field full of cow manure that's all wet, right, covered in flies?
Yeah.
Why is it the farmer doesn't die of E. coli? Why doesn't he get sick? He's working in cow manure all day, covered in flies, get bit by mosquitoes. I'm bit by mosquitoes here in Thailand, about 100,000 a week. Why don't I have all kinds of diseases and die and everything? How come? I don't even acknowledge that stuff.
Right. It's
Why?
not within your conscious reality. You don't perceive it as real.
Do you remember when you're 45? Remember when you were a kid and we were all running around outside and we get dirty and falls and maybe you get cut and the dirt gets in? Why aren't we all dead? Whatever happened to you just get well. Nowadays everything immediately, they have a temperature. COVID. No, it's not COVID. Forget about COVID. Just eat real food and believe in your own body. And if you're really scared, get a hold of me. I'll remove the fear. That's what I do. And just live your life. You don't worry about no freaking disease. First of all, there's no such thing as a virus that jumps across space. There's nothing like that. Nothing gonna jump onto you. Just breathe the air and forget about it. And I'm dead serious, folks. I'm completely serious. Just forget about it. It's all just nonsense. It's just nonsense.
Now, I'm gonna make this a 3-part series with you for deep healing, because there's a lot of stuff we need to talk about. And sometimes I used to do 3-hour shows live 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
But what I've been coached on is that it's better to have shorter shows and just do it in phases.
I'm with you. I like to talk for 3 hours, but everyone told me the same thing. The shorter is better.
That's what I used to do, because I love having 3-hour conversations and covering a lot of information, and I have people tuning in. But to grow in the podcast industry, you have to keep it short and concise. And one of them is because, and this goes back to conditioning too, is that what I've researched is that the average human being, especially here in the Western civilization, attention span is only 7 seconds. And I found that to be interesting, because I'm like, these YouTube shorts, these Instagram reels, these TikTok reels, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, storylines. And people,
what can you say? I just have enough time to say my name.
And people are starting to become conditioned to receiving what they deem as quality information that way, which is impossible. How can, for me, this hour and 13 minutes that we've been on, this is a warm-up for me. This is just breaking a sweat.
me too. And don't let me please put in your notes. I'm a bhakta, right? So when it comes to my the divine, I can help yourself and the audience on how to connect with the divine, so that it's actually taking care of stuff for you. It's much easier than you think. And right now, the war between the divine and the dark side is escalating fast.
Right.
For many reasons. This year and then 2024 is a big year, and the divine is pulling out all the stops to try to help us. And all you got to do is try to make your bond a personal bond, like I have. It's very easy to make, and the divine will step right in there for you.
Now, since we're going to do a 3-part series on this, before we end this broadcast, I would like for you to, if you can, describe a mystical, supernatural experience that you have with the audience, because I love to hear these.
Well, so some of my favorite, my divine, of course, when you're a bhakta, is an Indian term, means you live with your divine. So they're right here. So I have an altar. I have a formal altar where I do ceremony every single day. Right after I did one before this show, and then I wasn't able to finish it all because it takes me a couple of hours. So after this show, I'll be completing. So it's my bonding time, and I do thousands and thousands of mantra and all kinds of different things. Well, anyway, on my altar, there was a big formal day, and I had placed water, of course, to receive energy. And then I went and I got some nice homemade cinnamon rolls at a place that where they make them. They're really good. So I had a nice plate, and I put the cinnamon roll there. And my altar room is upstairs. It's a little separate room. So I went through all the ceremony with the divine, and it's all by candlelight. And I went to go to bed, and I closed the door, and the cinnamon roll is there. When I woke up in the morning to go into the room, the cinnamon roll was completely gone, and not even a crumb, nothing. They accepted the entire bun. They also move furniture around for, like, you ask for signs. Hey, when you're making a relationship with the divine, you tell them, give me some signs so I know absolutely it's you. It can't be a coincidence or something. So my cinnamon roll, I was shocked for hours, speechless, because it's a roll that's this big. It's gone in a sealed room. Now, these kind of things in a lot of the people, especially in India, where the culture facilitates this kind of relationship, the physical kinds of miracles are astronomical. And now the divine is providing soma. What is soma? Soma is substances and energy that they'll put in either water or in sometimes a physical matter. It's downloaded directly from the other realms. It's not from Earth. When you consume it, like, you make an intention and then you consume it. So you can make an intention for your earthly life or for enlightenment. And when you consume that, it happens like that. So now in San Diego, just a couple, maybe 2 months ago, they had the first Soma event in San Diego. And there's a lady who's specially ordained as a channel for that. Her name is Taylor. And she went to San Diego, and I think there was about 200 people. And they hold their water there, and then some of the water changes color. Some of it, the bubbles come into it, whatever. They consume that water, and everything changes. So that's called soma. So the divine is doing that as a fast, expedited way of helping humanity. I'm a Deeksha blesser. Deeksha means that the divine will channel through me into your brain. Now, that's been studied by functional brain scans at the University of Pennsylvania. A single Deeksha, and this is way back when they did the study, not now. Now it's much stronger. But a single Deeksha lights up the frontal cortex like a Roman torch, and through neuroplasticity, it starts to disassemble areas in the parietal lobes on the sides of your head in the brain that are responsible for things like worry, fear, regret, shame. They start to disassemble. One single Deeksha back then is continue to work on the brain for 6 months. So the effect of Deeksha is cumulative. And Deeksha is the absolute game changer. So when you get a Deeksha, that's between you and your divine. Or if you don't have a divine, you and the universe. It'll be the divine anyway. None of it, please don't misunderstand. I don't have any kind of powers or anything. I'm a channel. I'm a very clear channel. I am not involved.
And speaking of that, what exactly do you mean by the divine?
Okay, I love that. Let's take that on. So
and there's a reason why I'm asking you this question, right? Because I want to preface this too. There's going to be people that are going to listen to this particular episode, and they're going to have it in their mind based on conditioning or based on whatever they experience, that you devil in witchcraft. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
I have horns right here. It's just they're invisible.
but what I'm starting to learn more now than I have when I was in my 20s and 30s is that there is such thing as witchcraft.
Oh,
But
yes.
everything is a craft in actuality. Everything is based on some form of understanding and practice, right? Now, there's a lot of people that when you mentioned about the divine being present and you mentioned about that cinnamon bun disappearing, somebody's going to say to me, well, that was that fallen angel. That was that demon that took it. That demon that he summoned, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's people's belief systems, right? I'm not here to convince people that that's not true or that that's fake or whatever. That people, when it comes to cognitive dissonance, right? People are going to believe what they want to believe. I've had experiences to where when you're telling me this, I understand where you're coming from. And the healing that you do, I'm very much interested in. That's why I'm like the fact that I want to bring you on this show more and more, because people need to understand that our level of understanding of this thing called life is about this much compared to compared to all of the information that's out there. And it's something that I'm starting to stray away from in certain beliefs that I've had, to where I'm just like, that doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. And I feel like a lot of people like to keep it so simple because it challenges the cognitive dissonance. And the cognitive dissonance keeps it simple, keeps that level of understanding simple to where they don't go any further. And they're stuck
acts like a jar. They're in the jar.
They're not going to go any further from there.
No,
that's going to be recycled. That cognitive dissonance and their understanding and belief system is constantly being recycled. No matter how much information can prove to what they understand to be bogus or not true or not completely accurate, because I don't like to belittle people, but sometimes it's like, I just let it be, because it's like, I'm not here to try to convince you. I'm here to be an example of this universal, most high force that resonates throughout the entire universe. And like I always say, I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience.
That's right.
And it's temporary. Because this body that I have is temporary. But what's inside, that light that's within, that's forever. You mentioned it earlier about, I talk about this a lot, and I first learned this when I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, is that the brain is just a broadcasting station for light waves to come in and out.
It's an antenna array.
That's it.
They prove that now there's a new machine, I think it's called the magnetoencephalogram, and they now see and know that all thinking is occurring outside of the head. It's not in the head. Mind is a field.
Right.
But let me answer your first question so you can understand the divine.
Yes.
So you have universal intelligence. Think of that as the all that is.
Right.
That's the King of Kings. You have the divine Param Jyoti, which is a population. Okay. It's a massive, giant population of great beings who all go together, and you can think of their total collective like civilization as a giant ball of light. You have the dark side. The dark side is very real. And then you have the Akashic records, which is like a living, omnipresent supercomputer. Okay.
Right.
So everything is recorded there. So the divine is this giant ball of light. And you can approach, like when you die, you will go in front of the great compassionate light, the giant wall of light. You won't be in it. You'll be outside at first. And if you love Jesus, when you go in front of that light, Jesus can come out of there. If you like Buddha, Buddha can come out of there. If you like Krishna, if you want Archangel Michael, it doesn't matter who you want. Or if you don't believe in anybody, if you're an atheist, it might be your grandpa or your grandma or someone. They'll come out to talk to you for a while. And then after that, you'll go into the life review. And then from there, you'll either go into the light or you'll go down. Now, the way to deal with the divine is this. It's just like your immune system. Your immune system is made out of non-differentiated antibodies. They're non-differentiated, which means they can take any shape and morph into anything. So does the divine. So if the divine is just light, and for you, your comfort and your way is Jesus. So Jesus comes, and Jesus looks like Jesus for you. He's not wearing a tuxedo and a top hat and smoking a cigar. He looks like Jesus because that's how you think of him and know him. So you're comfortable, and he wants you to be comfortable. Then if you go to Tibet and you see Padmasambhava, so the divine manifests as Padmasambhava, you can talk to him, see him, and he doesn't look like a United States cowboy. He looks like Padmasambhava. So the divine will show up for you in whatever form, whomever or whatever you want for you, so that you can make a relationship. It's all the divine, but it'll come down for you to whomever or whatever you like, so that you can talk to them and relate to them. The easiest form you can do is for the divine is if it's like your mom, dad. I made mine like my grandma and grandpa. So I have grandma and I have grandpa. And my grandma and grandpas loved me very much. And I was a little tiny boy when they died. They were already very elderly. And I just remember them. So that's the easiest form for me. Because mom and dad, I can't do that. Doesn't work for me. Whatever works for you. And then you all you do once you select who you want to relate with and how you want the divine to talk to you, you start talking. Just like I'm talking to you now, he and I are talking. How do you make a relationship with anything? Even a dog, you talk to him, right?
Yeah, communication.
Once you start talking and you tell the divine, say, I want to make a personal bond with you so that you help me, you take care of me, you answer me. And always remember this, there's no such thing as judgment. Only we judge. No divine ever judged anything, ever. In fact, in the divine realms, there's no such thing as a negative. That's why when you pray,
that's right,
you only couch everything as solutions. You don't tell the divine what the problem is. Tell the divine, you say, thank you so much that I have as a reality. Thank you so much that this happened as a reality. That's the manifesting process. That's how the divine will answer you for you. If you start doing that and you do it all the time, I can assure you, you'll see things happen and things will change because the divine wants to help you. Cognitive dissonance, as ORRA is describing, it can completely block you, and it will block you from the divine. No divine will compromise free will. If you decide that this is all a bunch of malarkey, or let's say you meet me as a doc and you decide, no way, I don't believe nothing you do. I cannot penetrate that. Nobody can penetrate. That's why they killed Jesus. The Romans, he was nothing but pure love, but the Romans still put him on the cross because Romans, their free will or their thinking, they don't give a damn about Jesus. So they put him on the cross. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, makes absolute sense. and see, that's the thing, is that Christ was teaching this divine energy. And that's why he specifically said that the kingdom of this thing called heaven is already within you.
Yes.
It's there already. It's in us. That's why I themed this season, the light is within you and all around you, because like you mentioned just a minute ago, that when it comes to divine energy, when it comes to the universal force of all that is and ever will be, the great creator of all that is, it is nothing but a positive stream of light energy. And there
Yeah.
is nothing else but that positive stream. There is
Yeah.
nothing else. But there are entities that
Oh, yeah.
do the opposite of that. And they dwell in those negative frequencies, in those
That's exactly right.
in the darkness, right? So you have your dark warriors and you have your light warriors.
In
know?
It's very real, folks. I fight them now. I have enough support. I'm successful. But let's say take L.A. Satanic black sex magic is very powerful.
Very powerful, yeah.
If they are connected, if they have a morphic field like a coven, they have power.
They have a coven here where I live. There's a satanic coven. It's a vortex where I live.
Yeah, those things are very real. I have fought several of them on behalf of some of my clients, and I'm proud to say at this point I have enough support that we beat them. But
I've had several battles in my dreams, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my good friends, I haven't seen her now for years. I might be able to do it now, but her husband worked in the state penitentiary, and he also is an alcoholic. Now, my friend her and I graduated as docs together. So she was married to this man. They have children, and they were in Colorado, and demonic possession was going on in the house. And she called me, and I was able to clear them, but they kept coming back. And see, the problem was he wouldn't change. He would go into that pen where all the dark was there. He's drunk and he's angry, so it's easy for them to possess him.
He's easy pickings. Easy pickings, right now.
And these things were manifesting physically right in front of the kids. Now they moved to Hawaii, but they didn't do what I told them. They didn't want to take the time to get rid of. They needed to get rid of everything that could carry the energy, and that followed them there. So I told her to try to get a hold of some of those big kahunas there. I don't know if they ever did, but that was years ago. And since then, the divine has escalated my capabilities significantly. But it's places like LA, man.
Oh yeah, especially Hollywood. I had a friend that went to Hollywood back in 2008, and he said the moment he stepped into Hollywood, that his stomach was twisting and turning. He said he felt, because like myself, the friends that I associate, they're very empathic. So he said, I felt like I stepped into a lot of dark energy that was trying to bring my energy down to where my stomach started hurting and I became nauseous and dizzy. And he said, once I got out of there, it was just like instantaneous to where I started feeling better again, and that stomach and that knot in my stomach went away. And it's because of all of that satanic dark energy that's there. And they show you on TV all the time. I mean, especially with the music videos now, they're pretty much doing ritual seances to Satan or the devil and all of that. So, and it's not a secret anymore. And this is where the lack of common sense is.
Mel Gibson made that movie for the child trafficking.
I just saw that movie last week.
Did you see it? I want to see it.
Sound of Freedom.
He's got a lot of guts. They'll probably try to kill him.
I don't think so. I don't think they'll try to kill him because I think because of cognitive dissonance. This is just my opinion too, by the way, Dr. G, is that I feel like a lot of these people are given a pass to bring this information out at the
Oh, yeah.
times that they're allowed to, because the powers that be know that we're not going to do a damn thing about it. We're going to watch it. We're going to be like, oh, wow, that was so moving, so emotional, so inspirational, but nothing will happen.
But did you see how they just killed that big doc? They just assassinated him. What the hell is his name? Bashar. And he made a video that he put on, I saw it myself on Facebook and Instagram. He said, if I'm dead in the next couple of days, I want you to know, because he spoke out against the pandemic, a very strong.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of doctors that have been taken out.
Yeah, and he's dead and gone. And sure, it was only a couple of days after he made that video, and he was gone. So they they're playing hardball.
They are, because I'll tell you, my show has been around for 3 years, and I have not had the monetary success that some of my associates in the same industry have had. And the only reason is because their topic of discussions are considered to be fun, neutral, not controversial, things that I wouldn't say they're not meaningful, but they're not too much thought provoking. It's more entertainment, to say the least. And they're growing. They're making a boatloads of money every month off their podcast. And me, it's like people say, oh, your podcast is great. You got a 600 up. That's amazing. But yet even though I am successful as a podcaster and I am in the top tier of podcasting, monetarily, I don't show for it, which is fine for now, because I know with time that'll change, right? Because I will draw that energy in little by little.
I can probably help you there if you see me.
Absolutely. Because I feel like the type of information I'm bringing out is super important, and it helps people, because I've had people email me, contact me, tell me in person, your show did this for me. Your show prevented me from killing myself, and so on and so forth. So I know that this is a meaningful thing that I got going on here. Great. The thing is that they have so much control. And what I mean by that is that they have this thing called shadow banning now, to where it's like, they're going to let me do my thing, but behind the scenes, they're killing me with my numbers. So even though I have certain people listening and downloading, it's not reflecting on my numbers because of what I'm talking about. And that's the big thing that a lot of people like myself and many, many others are experiencing. It's like, why can't I just speak the truth anymore? Why can't I even give my opinion? And it's because they don't want people to be awakened to that. They want people to be deaf, dumb, and blind.
I saw some research that said the first indicator of complete authoritarian takeover is the censoring of information. Like I put information on, and instantly they said fact finding. Let me tell you something, folks. As far as fact finding goes, if you took 10,000 of those people, it wouldn't match the tip of my nose. You're just just morons. I'll tell you, with cognitive dissonance and programming, here's to back up what he says. I'm not a social media guy. I have a nice administrative gentleman that takes care of those things for me, and luckily he knows how to do that world and everything. But if I put a picture, sometimes I put a picture of myself, like say having a cigar or a glass of wine, and it'll get something like 50, 60 hits. And then I put a little blurb of some information that helps people, and like 3 people look at it. What? It's just it just blow my mind. All I'm doing is smiling, and all these people, they love it. And then I give them some information, that's really important. 3 people, 1 person. And it's the way they're programmed. They're hit like that.
They're edutainment. They're educated through entertainment. And entertainment releases a lot of that cortisol you were talking about.
That's right.
Because they love it. The dumber it is, the more money it makes on YouTube.
Yep.
That's how Jake Paul and his brother made millions of dollars on YouTube, is by doing the most dumbest, low level things that you could possibly think of that wouldn't even get attention if it was done in the 1950s. People would look at these guys like morons. But now
Look,
these
yeah.
guys are revered. These guys are
You
looked
know
at as
what's really
superstars.
sad? Something that's really sad to me is on if you watch my men, we're on Facebook and on Instagram, and you go down and there'll be they're putting it as comedy, but they're showing accidents.
Oh
And
yes.
the accidents, those people are really hurt or dying, and they're showing it as comedy.
And you know, the thing is too, Dr. G, is that when it comes to the conditioning, it's it's like they want people to just accept whatever they tell them, to
Yeah,
not question anything. It's like 1984, the book 1984. It's you're starting to see that. You're also starting to see the Hunger Games take place.
yep,
Um, it's so many things, and what I do appreciate about what's going on right now is when I meet people like yourself, where I know that even though the dark energy, the dark principalities that are here, even though they have a lot of momentum,
mm,
I truly feel within my heart that the reason why they're gaining so much momentum right now is because their time is running out to keep
I
us where we're
hope so.
at. And I feel like what you were saying is that divine energy, that universal positive stream of force is coming into clean house slowly but surely.
It's trying, but always remember something. You've got I don't know how much of the population they're already vaccinated, and they're all going to go down. And then they've initiated AI now, and AI will. So within Tony Robbins said the other day, within I think 14 years, he said that 47% of all current jobs will be gone, taken over by AI.
Right.
47%, and then there'll be slated several. I think they're only going to leave a couple million alive, or a few million alive. So all these people, and one of my good friends, there's a big, strong German doctor, only 40 years old, strong as an ox, Steve Offenberger, got two young kids, and he was a chiropractor at a corporation, so they made him take the vaccine. He's dead. He just dropped dead. You drop, folks, you drop dead from the vaccine. There's no symptoms, unfortunately. So you don't know you're getting sick. You just, the blood clots go to your lungs, you're dead. Go to your heart, you're dead. Go to your brain, you're dead. And you just drop dead when the time. So
Or it initiates some other type of illness, because what happened with
Mhm.
my sister did not take it for the first 7 or 8 months that they were telling her to. Once her job said, hey, you got 2 weeks left, if not, you're going to be terminated from your position, and when we can't have you no more, you're going to have to resign because you didn't take it. She took it. Then a week later, she took the second one. 30 days later, my sister died of a supposed asthma attack. Now, my sister has had asthma since she was about 4 or 5 years old, and she's been perfectly fine. All right. All of a sudden now, after 30 days after taking the shot, she passed away in her son's and husband arms.
Oh,
And it's insane because, you know, on her death certificate, it's saying that she passed away from an asthma attack, right? And what I'm noticing is that a lot of people are dying from other disease that's being caused by the nanotechnology mixed with the 72 toxins that are within that, you know, cocktail.
oh,
And it's very sad. And there's more coming. And it's happening every day. And you know who was hurt by this? What industry was hurt by this is the industry that I resigned from, that I came out of, the insurance world. The insurance industry was paying out claims so much that they have now completely restructured how they structure their policies based on all the deaths that they had to pay out on, because they couldn't say that you died from the shot, because if you say that you died from the shot, then that insurance claim is no longer valid, because it's just like dying in a war or dying from some type of major what do you call it, world crisis or something, like when 9/11 happened. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to bring that up because this is reality. And
Yes.
I think that people are waking up, but there's still many more that are still asleep and still believe.
Yeah, I like to clarify that, because I try to clarify this for everybody everywhere I go. All of us people who are watching this, the only reason you're watching this is because you're awake, at least to a degree. Otherwise, you'll never see this show. So though us people, our consciousness is increasing. Consciousness is increasing. Mine is increasing. People at the Heart Math Institute are increasing. Resonance Academy under Nassim Harmein is increasing. People that are associating with Eckhart Tolle and Bruce Lipton, they're increasing. But I don't want you to fool yourself. That is increasing. The mistake the spiritual communities are making is they think that extends to the world. It doesn't. You know, if everything is a morphic field, you know how many millions or billions of people there are living in Asia? 99.999% of all of them are utter compliance. You know what percentage of the global collective consciousness they represent? You realize all around you, every time you see someone wearing a mask, anybody that's a huge field of complete unconscious compliance. AI is already installed. HARP is already installed. All of the 5G towers are already installed. All of the media and all of the super infrastructure of society is already completely commandeered, and they have all the money.
Right.
That's why they can shadow him. So please don't be optimistic, but be realistic and understand. Like if we're the freedom fighters in Nazi Germany was still Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was a morphic field. That's what Hitler created. He made the same thing, smaller scale. Now this is a bigger scale, the whole world, with the infrastructure in place and decades of programming backing it. So we are really very exceptional people, and we are getting stronger. But please understand, that doesn't mean that Monsanto is going out of business tomorrow.
It's true.
Yeah, and Monsanto kills everything.
That's right.
5G kills all biologic life. All biologic life. Nothing that is biological is made to withstand or adapt or deal with Wi-Fi. That's why when I'm doing I have a very sophisticated Wi-Fi protection. 4G alone breaks single and double strand DNA in half. That gives you every cancer under the sun. 4G is developing 3 different grades of dementia. It attacks water and oil. Your brain is made out of water and oil. So Wi-Fi, while we need it, it's our biggest enemy. If you go to my website, you can see on the products, I only endorse certain things, and you have units of you can get these are wireless, and I saw the double-blind human experiments that the reason I endorse this, it works.
I'm definitely going to take you up on that because I work around my modem here. I have my modem close by.
You gotta have that. That's Wi-Fi is the most. I mean, the big fires. Wi-Fi 4G increases terpenes so much in the plants that they self-combust, given the right environmental conditions. The plants self-combust. Why do you think we're in the middle of we're past the middle of the sixth mass extinction, folks? Now that's just the earth and all biologic life disappearing. That includes us. And that's the Wi-Fi is the hugest contributor for that. And then you have, people nowadays, they see an ant. So they go to Home Depot and they buy Raid and and that kills you, the cat, your children, everything. You know what that kind of poison is? And that goes into the groundwater, and it's all these things. So to become aware, to empower yourself, to feed your brain, like Jim Rohn says, feed the brain constant, strong, inspiring, good information, and don't become susceptible to la la land. You can live in la la land. You can. You'll never die in la la land. Always remember that. Nobody dies in la la land. They can live in it, but they will not die in it. And that is important. Very important.
Yeah. Well, Dr. G, what a great, episode we had here. I mean, really appreciate you coming, and definitely going to have you come back.
Please, I'd love to.
For the people that are listening, of course, like always with all our guests, we're going to have Dr. G's sites. If you want to learn more about what he does, if you want to get in contact with him, he has a call to action link that I'm going to post in the description box. And it's the call to action link on Dr. G. Rex Kruhly's podcast will direct listeners to his website, which is a valuable resource for personal growth and development. And by clicking the link, listeners will gain access to a wealth of informative and helpful content, including podcasts, articles, videos, and more, all designed to help them on their journey towards becoming the best version of themselves. This link also provides an easy way for listeners to continue their personal growth beyond the podcast and access additional resources to support them in their journey through private sessions with Dr. Kruhly himself. So, Dr. G, I always let my guests leave a last final comment or, something that they want to leave the listeners with, and you can take as long as you want. What's your final comments for the listeners?
Wow, my final comment for the listeners.
Or final message.
My final message would be like this. I created depth healing to serve people in humanity, and I can do it one-on-one, and I'm also a specialist of morphic field physics. So collectives all the way up into the thousands, I can influence all of them at the same time. So if you need a hand, if life isn't working the way you want it, if you're sick or hurt, if you feel blocked, just get a hold of me and I'll take care of it for you. I engineer lives. It doesn't make any difference what the category is. I'll just take care of it for you.
Absolutely. All right. So stick around, Dr. G, for a moment, because I'm going to obviously talk to you after we finish this broadcast, but let me put my outro music on here for a second.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, you're very welcome. And to all my network of Awareans, I want to thank you for tuning in to this first episode of Deep Healing with Dr. G Rex Kruhly. And Dr. G, we're going I want to talk about quantum physics for the second episode of Deep Healing.
Okie doke.
Quantum physics. We'll
Be
talk
my
more
pleasure.
about morphic fields and all of that, and just quantum fields overall and how that all plays into our lives.
I'd love to.
So with that being said, brothers and sisters from around the world, when you live in the present, there's always an opportunity for a new beginning. And don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because the light is and always will be within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. This is ORRA the Informationalist with Dr. G, saying peace, love, and light, and may the force of the Most High be with you. Peace.
Oh, I like that.